Welcome back to Wedlocked and Loaded.
Wedlocked and loaded.
You women.
Do not lump us all in one category.
So you girls, and lie and stretch the truth
You
and try
girls,
to get us jammed up.
First of all, I'm a whole ass woman, right? Think about
No
that.
disrespect.
Sounds like it to me. So why can't y'all? What is it with men that they just can't walk away?
Depends how good it is. You don't want to give that away.
Greetings, everyone. New episode of Wedlocked and Loaded. I am Daniel Laurent.
And I am Leah Nicole.
We are back again with a couple of things. And I don't know if you wanted to get into something that we were talking about last week, or if you wanted to just stick with new stuff. But while you're thinking of it, because I just want to just get this out the way, and this is in my mind, the correlation. So obviously for those out there, you're aware of, well, some of you are aware of, there's back and forth with 50 and T.I. and 50 T.I.'s family and
The
all
Harris family.
Yeah. And you know, I think that this is it's interesting on so many different levels, and for me, I equate a lot of 50's antics and pettiness and tweets and actions with Trump. And because I equate them as the same thing, it's hard for me to celebrate so much of the stuff that 50 does. You know, and I think that people are selective in like what they champion and laugh at and partake in, you know. And it's just very, very interesting where there's a subset of us, there's a subset of Black men that gravitate towards that, which Trump and 50 both exude. Right? And I don't think people...
What, the bullying?
The bullying that can be looked at as machismo and masculine and a man's man and not a punk and the aggressor, you know, and some of these things are for different reasons. You know, people might have been picked on when they were kids, and this is something that they wish they can do. You know, I don't know, but
so I remember like when he first came. Well, when we first heard of him on this side of town, and from then, like from the very beginning, like I had my own opinion about him, and
I remember that.
I can't say that it's changed. You know.
But was that a boundary? Because you felt the way. So it was the 8 Mile soundtrack, and it was a song that 50 had on it. And you know, the line was, used to listen to Lauryn Hill and tap my feet, and bitch put out a CD, ain't have no beats.
Used to listen to Lauryn Hill and tap my feet, then the bitch put out a CD, didn't have no beats.
And I was like, oh no. And you was like, cut that shit off. And for me, I wouldn't say that. I actually like the Unplug album with Lauryn Hill, and I guess maybe I'm in the minority.
You aren't, but go ahead.
No, when I bring it up, like people don't, it's not a thing. I don't know. But so for you, was it because Lauryn Hill represented and still represents that part, right? Versus if he said, like, you know, used to listen to Lil' Kim till she fucked up, you know, is Lauryn Hill like the bar of don't touch that, don't cross that line? Like, what was it in that line that made you? Because I feel like that's what did it.
That's definitely what did it. That's definitely what did it. And I don't know that it was so much about, like, I dug Lauryn Hill back then. Like, definitely as a fan, you know what I'm saying? But again, like, it's just like, yo, why you coming after this Black woman? She ain't did shit to you. Right? So it was that thing, right? And then, like, you know, the beef with Ja. for me, it's like it was contradictory because you're calling him a singing rap nigga, right?
Mm.
But then you go ahead and you do the same thing. Like, what? What are we doing? What are we talking about? You're a punk to me. I smell pussy.
Mm.
Yeah, you smell it all right. Sorry. Wow.
I mean,
So that's just, and I think, as I grew older, and I think what happens with music, with film, with anything of the world, when it is constantly pushed down your throat.
Oh, yes, Daddy.
Right? Or constantly put on in front of you, you're kind of forced to see and or hear things, right? And for me, I'm definitely like, I'm a beat person before I'm a lyric person most times.
mm-hmm.
And so like if I could ride with the beat, then I could, like that's one aspect of it for me. You know what I'm saying? And then I subtract the beat and just straight listen to the lyrics, right? And if you're saying something that has substance, then I can get with it. But I also can understand, and rock with just that regular shit talk. But it still has to make sense. And I still have to believe you.
And you felt like you just never like gravitated.
I never did. However, like, there's some song, like maybe like some collaborations or like this, there's definitely some songs that were just, on the radio all the time. And so you're kind of like, again, forced to listen to it, so to speak. And so I think for me, what happened was over time, never was a fan, right? Over time, it just didn't bother. Like I wasn't so fast to turn it off, right? But also over time, some of the things I'm seeing look as though like there was some progression and some maturity on his behalf.
Mm.
And now I just see that little boy all over again, right? That's been backed into a corner and has to bully his way out.
But the backing in a corner is self-inflicted.
Could be. Right? Could be.
I think,
but like initially it probably wasn't. He just was backed into a corner and had to claw his way out, fight his way out.
You're talking about in life. Or
I'm talking about in life.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking right now for that to be shown.
Right. Right now, I think he's reverted back to that little boy that was backed into that corner.
Yeah.
Right. And then he found a pocket because he bullied it. And maybe he challenged the one person. Let's make it Ja Rule. And from there, it's like, oh, well, since I challenged, him or them, right? I can now take on the world.
It's an interesting, I say it, I know that you have commented or say that it doesn't sound right or it might be offensive. Again, when you have conversations with folks and they're actively or they have done, any sort of self-work, I think it's a different kind of conversation and a different resolution and a different understanding of life. Now, I'm not talking forced therapy if you're in, if you're an orphan or if you're, incarcerated or any of the things, right? I'm not talking forced anger management and that type of stuff. I'm saying like elected, and you can still find, and 100%, you can still find value in those things.
I was about to say.
Right. But I think the difference of you willingly on your own accord saying, I want to do this. I don't know what the problem is, but I want to explore and figure out what these things are. I just think it's I think we would just interact with each other differently. And I think the effects would be different and just healthier. And there's a lot of folks that you look at least me, I can see like, yeah, there's a lot to unpack. And I think selfishly, even though I want to be the change that I want to see in the world, and I still want to, like, my first instinct is to help. I'm seeing almost like a video game of like, yeah, stay away, radiating, negative neutrons. I can't take that on. Let me stay away. I'm not gonna answer this person's phone call. Instead of like leaning into it, because I realize that you can't help everybody, and the help in which I want to give may not be received in that way, and it just turns into something else.
Yeah.
And so it's really frustrating. And the older that we get, what's acceptable, what should be acceptable today as anyone that's 35, 40, 45, 50, you should look at things differently than you did when you were 20. And the sad part is, for me, in hip hop in particular, and also just in the neighborhood, there's some people that just never quite got it. And they're just going to be that way. They've committed to being that way. And it's sad to me. It's not funny. I don't want to entertain it. I'm just not interested. And, I tell you, and I think I'm probably more explicit in my thoughts because I'm mindful that like it could sound mean, right? So I wouldn't say it on podcasts or say it on shows or on songs. But it's sadness. Like, I want to be around light. And I think everything's not going to be happy all the time. So that's not what I'm saying. I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying. But like, if you were negative Nathan or negative Nancy all the time, it's like, God damn, bro. If every time I talk to you, you're on bullshit all the time, and you're talking about how somebody disrespected you and how this happened and this happened and this happened, it's like, God damn.
I think that there are some people, right? I think that there are some people, unfortunately, who will and have constantly found themselves on the short end of the stick, right? Receiving the short end of the stick. And it's not like
found is interesting. You believe found?
I don't understand.
You believe that there's some people that find themselves on the short end of the stick, as opposed to, like, I don't know.
Well, what did I say? I'm sorry, because now you're confusing me.
I might be like, I don't want to analyze too much, and then you forget your point. But I guess when you said there are some people that find themselves on the short end of the stick,
who constantly find themselves on the short end of the stick,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Or receiving the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, and by that, like, it's not necessarily, some people may construe it as bad luck, right? A person constantly having bad luck. But if you also look at it in a way where, I do believe, okay, so let me, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to bring it back in, right? I think that if we put it in the context of like friends and family, right? And, for instance, okay, I know I've known you since I was 8 years old, and we've grown up together, may have lost touch and then got back together, right? Like connected back together, or may not have lost touch, but were distant, right? Like we were distant in a sense of you know, we grew up in the same neighborhood, then I moved away or you moved away, but like we still kept in contact, but we didn't see each other all the time. And then we didn't, but also not always knowing all the ongoings, right? The going ons. And then we connect again, but we're still pretty young, right? But I consider you my friend / family. And with that, you can do no wrong, right? However, the time that we spent apart, because of distance, you grew into this person that, you know, I never knew. I never saw that side of, right? And because I knew you from before, I still can't really see that side of you, although I'm seeing some things. But I choose to continue to give you chance after chance after chance after chance after chance, right? Because I love you as my friend, as my family. In doing so, you have robbed me, right? Stolen from me. You have put me in situations where I've been shot at. You have put me in situations where now, you know, people are the same people that are after you because you did them wrong. They're after me, even though I did no wrong to them. I don't even know who they are. To the point that, right. So like I don't want to go deep down, but that person that continued to give you chance after chance after chance is now receiving the short, like just has, you know,
So I see. So in that particular sense, yes.
And then it's not always that way, right?
No, but like if you multiply that relationship times 5 other relationships,
so
right,
tying
and that person is constantly
right,
like,
so tying it back,
so I could see that.
So tying it back, tying it back and understanding the value of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and you know, with a combination of people who are doing things that are not your typical, but positive, right? Not negative, but positive. So surrounding yourself with, you know, people that you have, you know, a whole lot of things in common with, but also uncommon things with, and things that are whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And in your circle, there should be elevation, right? Each one teach one. You all should be able to teach each other something. And it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, it has to be centered around book learning. But the bottom line is you should be able to elevate one another. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yep, lost it.
Well, you know, I wanted to at least just mention that. I think to your point, if
but my point is growth, right?
But
ultimately,
but how does growth?
and I just said how it does, like how you can grow as an individual if you're not a self-starter, self learner, right? Like if you don't have a quest to learn on your own, then you link with people that you can just naturally learn from by just being in close proximity to.
I mean, that's what I would love, but you know, unfortunately. And I think it's like minds. Like if a person, like there's still people who I talk to. Part of it bothers me, and no offense to anyone that may be listening that feels this way, but I hate like when I'm talking to somebody about something, right, and they have no idea what I'm talking about, and they're like, oh, I don't, you know, I have no idea. I didn't know anything about that. Like I don't watch TV at all. I don't have time for that. Blah 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 blah. You know, it. Whenever I'm talking to someone, now it's one thing to just say that and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when a person double down on it, when a person doubles down and goes out of their way to say how they don't have time to, whether they watched it or not, but know that there is a Diddy doc that 50 did,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or know that, Sinners came out and it's like the biggest thing, and that like a lot of us collectively, especially as Black people, are like proud of.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy for them.
Mm-hmm.
When you double down on, I guess I did hear about it, but I never even like watched the trailer. I didn't, I be reading. I'm too busy for that shit. And it's like, okay. Now,
Well, I think
and
you
I
also
think
have a
my
problem with
thought,
people saying they're too busy for something, right?
well,
Because you know
that's
how you utilize your time, and you make it. You're very intentional about
it's a trigger, and
just trying to do all the things, right? But some people don't have the capacity to do all the things, and
but that's different than not having, like, we make time for what we want to make time
absolutely. But here's what I'll say. So just because it is an interest of yours, right? It doesn't mean that that particular thing has to be an interest of the other.
I know.
And because that's where you differ, like that's just going to just be where you differ.
But I guess,
but it doesn't like
this is what it is more so. It just goes back to the you can't expect you from other people,
mm-hmm.
right? I don't watch baddies at all.
Mm-hmm.
I know it exists.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, and I don't know if she's on the current one or whatever, but I know that there was a girl, Biggie.
Mm-hmm.
I know that baddies exist.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know that exactly? It's not because of our daughter. Like, I knew that baddies existed. I just find it interesting when like something exists and then you are not curious about it, which is fine, but then it's I don't know, and it's going off from 50 and Trump. But I wanted to mention that because I've certainly said that to people recently when they've like talked about his antics, and for me it's the same
about
thing.
50's
Yeah,
antics.
and so I just wanted to mention that on the
so
show.
Singing that you brought up the 50 the Diddy doc that 50 did.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever stop to ask yourself like why he chose to do it?
I don't know if it so much matters to me.
Really?
No. I mean, because I've heard him be asked that directly, and I don't believe his answer. And so, what difference does it make?
Oh, okay.
I do believe that he's petty, for
mm-hmm.
sure. So back to the Trump thing, like this second presidency is a revenge tour.
Mm-hmm.
So all the people that wronged him, he's gonna come back and get.
Mm-hmm.
So 50, very similar. So Diddy, I think it goes far beyond 50's baby's mother. I think it's just certain things that has happened, and he is in a position where he is not an underdog and someone that needs Puff to greenlight something for him, so he can air his grievances and make a dime off of it. Right? And so now, that's not to say that someone is doing horrible shit and it keeps constantly being excused and this person is never being held accountable. And so through the pettiness and through the yuckiness, we get an exposure and an expose on said things. I think both things can exist, right? But yet again, it echoes, it's all good until it's not, right? All these things were happening, but it's until you were impacted. Now we all sound the alarms. It's not until you got scammed. Now you got to go on the news and call Fox 25 and all these things, right? But you've heard these things happening. People that have been impacted by it. They probably shared their personal stories, but it's not until you are personally slighted, which is back to the point that I said in the last show. So I do think that's the case. I think that he personally, he has means, he has the time, he's definitely petty, and he said enough. So, you know, I think that my level of thinking and my tact, what I would do is maybe do that, but I would have a further removal from it, where it's not viewed as a documentary that I did.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess the double-edged sword of it, the double-edged sword is, if he's not attached to it, it doesn't get the same recognition. It doesn't get the rollout. It doesn't get the whole thing. So, does anyone care if, Murphy Lee puts out a Diddy doc? And no disrespect to Murphy Lee. Do you even know who that is?
St. Lunatics?
Okay. Because you didn't. But like, does anybody care? Does anyone care if Emil puts out a Jay-Z documentary?
Am I supposed to answer that for real?
No, seriously.
So I don't know. And I don't know that anybody really cared that 50 put it out. Right now,
Sure, they did.
I don't know that they really cared that it was 50 that put it out, because there were other documentaries that were already out that had already been made. And at the end of the day, people want the mess. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't matter where it come from. Just because he put it out doesn't mean that it's any more true than the last person that did it.
Yeah, but the petty allows you to really dig in
Again,
and talk to your middle school teachers and talk to your neighbors and really dig in, versus the other one with just puff pieces, with no pun intended, where they would just basically like taking the clips and the headlines and then presenting it in one 30-minute story. This was going to Leah's personal banker, who told her that she needs to stop, running her company this way, and this is what I advise you, right? And then later on you end up having a Ponzi scheme. That's what the petty does, and that's what the resources allows.
No, that's what the resources allow.
And
But my point is
Anyway.
that nobody really cares about, like, okay, 50's behind it, so what, right? The information is still the information, and people want that information because it's messy, and they want to be in somebody else's messy mess as opposed to dealing with their own.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by it. And so
before
I was just very curious about that. Like, because I never, like, it never dawned on, like, I never asked myself, like, that's interesting. Like, this is not a space, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would expect to see him, right? And why here? Like, how, other than financially, you know what I'm saying? Like, how has he, and he benefited from it, but, like, how has he been affected by this particular thing?
Yeah.
Right? To want to do such a thing. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's more respectful if he would have said it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more, it is definitely him being petty.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And finding a way to make a means off of it. But and then you have to ask the question, like, to whose expense though? Right? At whose expense?
What do you mean?
That, like, how far are you willing to go with your petty in terms of, like, who you may potentially hurt?
It doesn't matter.
Well, of course.
We're all expendable. And that's why I make the correlation between Diddy and Trump. 50 and Trump. They're the same person. Because, you can work for him until, we just seen a firing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that, G Unit came out. He's definitely made comments and, jokes and all this stuff about Lloyd Banks and Buck and, you know, him in Game and, you know, Shaw Money XL, like there's no anyone that he came up with for the most part, Bang'em Smurf, like there's no one around that was, with the exception of Yayo, right? And people have their opinions of him. But I feel like Yayo is the 50, what Bleak is the J. And I actually admire that.
Whoa.
Huh?
You admire that? But then that's what I'm talking
I
about.
admire that because we're in a time, I don't like the blind loyalty. Anything you do is right and godly and there's a reason for it, right? But I think they both come from a place of, in public, we're together. When we get home, I'm gonna tell you blah 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 blah, right? But in today's times where people don't necessarily know their roles, it's just interesting to me. And I think that the thing that I admire, and I was just talking to you about how, you know, Black Sam and Nipsey,
The brotherhood.
right? Or the Locks. Am I to believe that the Locks never had disagreements? But it's just so refreshing to not have public shit that I could pull to show that there's chinks in the armor and that there's disloyalty or jealousy or animosity. Whenever people are talking about the top artists, the top MCs, it's always Jada and Styles. Am I to believe that Sheik has never felt slighted? Or Sheik is literally okay with being amongst greats. And he knows that he got his own shit and he'll show up and do his 1-2 and then he goes home. He doesn't have an interest in having a podcast.
Nice.
Huh?
I think he's nice.
Yes, he is. And he always has been. But that's not the narrative. And so, you know, I appreciate a person who, because we see so many examples of disloyalty. We see it on high levels with, this is extreme, but like Marvin Gaye and his father. You see Selena and the president of her fan club, which, you know, they're relitigating that shit and she didn't really do it or blah, blah, blah. Who cares? But you just see like disloyalty left and right. So I appreciate when, yo, that's my guy. Right? Like I appreciate that. I don't like the blind shit. Because none of us are fallible and just, you know, but I appreciate it. So, speaking of loyalty and, you know, all that,
but let me ask, okay, so before you even do that, because I don't even know where you're going, but I just want to ask you this one question. You know, it's not the blind leading the blind.
Did he do it?
No, it's not the blind leading the blind, but it also is the blind leading the blind. Like if I just have this unfiltered loyalty to you, right? Like, or this blind loyalty to you rather, like, so I have a problem with that, right? Because I should be able, as your friend, as your brother, as your sister, as whomever, I should be able to call you on your bullshit. I should be able to correct you when you're wrong, right? I should be able to give my solicited and unsolicited advice. And being that, you know, we are so close, like you should be able to take that without feeling disrespected and or whatever, right?
I agree with you.
And so for that, if it's not that kind of bond, I don't want it and I don't believe in it.
But we're in agreement. But you also wouldn't come on this show and, like, you know, name your close friend and say how she was wrong in doing something, would you?
I think it depends.
You would talk about the thing and make a hypothetical, but you wouldn't come on here and say that, just like you wouldn't go out to the nightclub and choose to have that conversation in front of 15 strangers.
So let me say this.
You would go out, have a good time, and then when you're sitting in a car with that person, you'll say that. But I mean, you carry it a certain way, so it's the same thing. We're both saying the same thing as far as the loyalty thing, right? I think both of us don't agree or and don't want and are not yes men. But it's still a matter of whether we talked about last week with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, right? Like there's a certain, like, you're not going to, you over there are not going to say that she is, I forgot the shit that they said. I mean, ghetto, yes, but I can't think of it. What's the thing? What's the term they said? Anyway, there's a term. There's a term that they kept calling her, right? Like you're not gonna come over here and do that, right? We can have our conversations with her or the likes of her and figure out whatever, but you are not gonna do it.
No, my goal is not to publicly humiliate anyone.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I mean, unless if
For the
someone's
most part.
doing monstrous shit, because
Right.
I think even with the documentary, like one of the narratives, and it's because, again, it would be different if like John Singleton, rest in peace, did a documentary on, whatever, right? But I think when you're so public about your issues and you're so petty about it, and then you do said thing, it just gets put into a petty box, right? And then people are like, oh, you know what I'm saying? There's another black man being tore down. And like, I don't subscribe to that shit, because if you're a monster, you're a monster. And I don't care what ethnicity you are and what race you are and what gender you identify with. Right? If someone's making up shit and slandering you, that's a separate conversation. But when you start having a history of things, and when people, bottom line, whether you're a banker, a personal banker, and you're making $300,000 a year, or you're a record executive making $20 million a year, when you start having unfeathered access and a lack of systems and accountabilities, depending on your moral compass, things are just going to start getting dangerous. Now, the problem is when there's never a self-reflection, back to the therapy piece, when there is never a self-reflection, to be like, damn, like I shouldn't move like that. Right? And let me try to pivot. Let me right some of these wrongs. But just because now you will want to right your wrongs doesn't mean the ones that you have harmed or crossed are ready to now forgive and let you off the hook. So we all got to deal with it the way we got to deal with it. That's the part that sucks. That's the part that sucks. But I was trying to get into this. Speaking of loyalty, I wanted to talk about closure, because this was an idea that you had. And do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. What does closure look or feel like, and who is it for?
You asking me, or you want to answer?
I'm asking you.
What does closure look like? Closure.
What does it look like? What does it feel like? And ultimately, who is it for?
I think closure is for both, but I think some people are used to not getting it, so they operate from that deficit. For me, I love closure because it allows just what it says. Right? Like, we say all these terms. We say like, oh, let's unpack it and blah, 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 right? Once you unpack it, like, what do you do with said thing? So think about a suitcase after you leave after you come back from vacation, and you unpack your suitcase. There's some, for the most part, you're going to take your stuff, you're going to wash it. There might be some stuff that's like, I didn't like the way this fit, so I'm going to throw this away, or I'm going to donate it, or my homegirl or my homeboy would probably like this better. The sunscreen lotion spilled in my stuff. I only got a quarter left. Let me throw it in the trash. Let me sort through it, right? So then I can zip my suitcase back up and put it in the basement or in the attic. That's closure for me versus just unpacking a bag and just having shit all over the floor. And what you do is kick it under the bed because now you got to get ready for the gala tomorrow night. And that's what I feel like a lot of us do. It's a matter of, yes, we had the conversation, we got into the argument, the shit's all over the floor, but I got to go to work tomorrow, so I got to bring the kids to soccer practice. I got this date tomorrow, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm hoping that this works out. I'm tired of being out in these streets. All this shit. And you don't actually like sort through the luggage and then zip it up. And so closure is it looks like just that. It looks like a resolution. It doesn't mean that you'll agree with it, but hopefully you find some understanding. Hopefully going forward there's lessons of, well, I won't do that again, or I won't allow that again, or we won't talk to each other like that again, or something, right? I won't loan you something again. I won't get a car in your name again. I won't get a car for anyone in my name again. And then you just move on from it, right? But you know, when there's not closure, it just is open wounds, and it's a landmine that like anyone is liable to walk on. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair for humanity, and I don't think that's fair for us as a community. Like, if I happen to raise my voice at you because we're having a back and forth and I'm passionate, not you, but if I raise my, and I'm like, yo, that's ridiculous. And all of a sudden me saying ridiculous reverts you back to the 7-year-old when your father said that before he bald fist punched you in the mouth. And you remember that feeling, and now that you're an adult, you can defend yourself, and you do all this in real time as I'm talking and doing all this shit, and equate me saying ridiculous to your father who punched you in the mouth. That's not fair to me. I had no idea about any of that.
Right. So I'm more so speaking of, I guess, you know, relationships. For me, what you're describing, for me, that equates to just a trigger. And when I'm saying, like, you know, what does closure look like? You know, are you saying that? Are you suggesting that? Are you suggesting that the closure that you're describing, it just it sounds like to me that you're just talking about distinguishing all triggers.
No, I just happen to use that one as just an example of closure.
Okay.
Right? But I'm saying that if you don't do the closure part, then it's just an open wound that everyone at any given time can, like, you know, it's like throwing salt in it. And that's just not fair. Because how is anyone supposed to know? You didn't do the work from your last relationship, right? You didn't take a time to reflect and go through whatever processes. Now me and you are in a new relationship. We're not talking about egregious shit. We're not talking about me putting my hands on you or cheating on you or whatever, right? But if I don't open the door for you this one time and you fucking spit in my face and going all this shit.
That's pretty crazy.
Exactly. But how was I supposed to, like, you got out first and you walked ahead of me, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah. I want to narrow this down, and because I want to talk specifically, and you're talking about relationships, but I want to talk specifically about like relationships, be it intimate or personal, right? So when I think of closure, yes, there is, I think of a disagreement and possibly separation, right? And so, you know, you used an example of, you know, having breaking up, right? And so I guess for me, even if it's not a breakup, but like if it's a disagreement where you're left like really like, not understanding how you got to that specific place, or why something that was said was received that way when it was definitely said and or done out of love, right? But again, let's keep it to a breakup. Say prime example, when we dated in high school, right? We didn't officially like break up. We just grew distant, right? From that, with no explanation, because that's to me what closure is. It's a conversation that involves an explanation so that everybody is and can be on the same page. And if not on the same page, very close to it, but either way, that there is an understanding, right? A clear understanding on both parties' part.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take it back to the moment when, when we broke up, but never really broke up, do you feel like did you see did you seek closure in that moment?
No. But
I mean, I guess that was kind of like
rhetorical.
it's loaded in a sense of
I think it's a perfect
there was
question.
you didn't seek it because it was already assumed closed.
It was assumed close, and so I think, but
But
that's a perfect example that
that's
lets.
based on the circumstances, right?
Well,
Because had
so you were if you
had
weren't
I not been
if
pregnant,
you weren't pregnant, I think I would have been open to additional conversations, maybe in a different way. But for me, I assumed what I assumed, and that was my closure. But I think,
but you didn't just assume it. Like, so let's be real. So I think let me just say this. I think your closure was you coming up to the school to see it for your own self. And once you saw it,
yeah,
that was
I felt like I
the
owed. Well, because of our conversations of just what you felt about, having
excuse
a
me.
child and being married, that all that stuff. Like, I was like, no way. So one, it was like, that's bullshit, and two is like, oh, let me see, because I feel like I owed that, at least, you know what I'm saying. But that, it's interesting to I think I don't always tie things in life. I have what I call bookmarks, and it's from certain things that there's changes, and it changes me. And so that situation, I think, probably was very instrumental into why closure is so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's easy to assume whatever narratives you want to assume, and then move on from it. And then you can use the excuse, I don't give a fuck, and that don't mean nothing to me anyway. And you know what I mean? But like, I want to know why you thought it was okay to X, fill in the blank. I want to know why you didn't, you know how close I was with my grandfather, and it would have been nice for my best friend to be by my side on that day.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to assume that, like, your kid's in the emergency room, right? Or your wife was in labor. I don't want to assume any of that. It's just nice if you say to me, whatever. I don't want to assume that, because then what happens is people typically assume the worst.
Right.
So closure is super important to me, and I think that situation is probably one of the things that like started this thing that I never said to myself. I never like sat down and said I need closure. But there's a lot of stuff that, like, if you go down a rabbit hole, you can start like analyzing and stuff you have no control over. You know, are there really aliens walking amongst us and all this other shit? But like, I can find out directly why I had a space saver outside and the neighbor came and moved it and parked there. Like, why did you do that? I could assume, but I want to know from you, why did you do that?
So, who is the closure for? Do you believe it's for you?
I feel like it's for both of us.
So
but
both can benefit from it.
What I said in the beginning, I feel it's for both, but I think people have been so used to existing with not getting closure and operating from like a deficit. And to me, I feel it's a deficit. The beauty is the understanding. The beauty is the conversation of, okay, and even though like you did it that way, I wouldn't have done it that way, but I can see that. Perfect example is me and D, right, with the whole headphones thing. Like in his mind, and I believe him, in his mind, he was taking that off my plate and helping me. In my mind, how dare you do that to me? I'm the one that's doing blah 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 blah. I'm the last one that should be spoken, right? But if that conversation never happens, I just go through life feeling like, yo.
Yeah.
But the beauty is, okay, I could see that. I could see literally how like it's two different planes at two different altitudes. Like I can see that. Doesn't negate how I felt and how I carried that.
Right. Well,
but
and then
it's like,
but also, you know, to that point, like, I don't want to say whose fault is it, right? But then, like, whose fault is it now? Because clearly, when you receive that
for it happening,
for you feeling the way that you feel by receiving the message, so clearly, you know, anything through text is it's difficult, right? Because you can't really read the tone unless the tone has been set, right? But also based on where you are in the moment mentally and emotionally, you're going to read whatever the message is in that tone where you're the emotional state that you're in.
Yeah, I'm reading it up or
and so because you're reading it with the emotion, you have now changed the narrative of how it was sent. Right? Yeah. Like if there's a message that is sent with love, but because you're upset, you're reading it in anger, and now you're confused because you know that you have, even though this person, you would hope to know, but you know for certain that this particular person wouldn't do anything to harm you because he's only shown you love.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do believe that closure can be good, and I think that you can create your own, right? If you know for certain that you've never done anything or even unintentionally done anything to harm a person, and maybe you feel like you were wronged in a situation, right? I think it's important to be able to have that space at some point to have that conversation. However, going in, I believe that you should prepare yourself to know that the words that you speak may not be received and vice versa, and be okay with wherever that conversation leaves that relationship.
Yeah. I am better now of like not expecting having conversations with certain people or about certain things. Like I'm better. I don't have it mastered to a science, but I'm better now at like, what's the point of this? Like, am I just doing this to get this off? And some of it is. I want to get this out because I don't want to tell 15 other people about it. I don't want to belabor you about it and keep talking about it every night. I'm going to get this off to the person that I need to get it off to, and then that's that. But so you know, I'll go back to what you just said, and I want to being dramatic when I say this, but I want to do a little incision on the sentence that you said, right? That I know that I didn't hurt anyone, you know, intentionally or unintentionally. Like, I'm even at the level, right, of maturity and growth and trying to be better and evolving, of like, I may not have felt like I've done anything to you, and you have felt like I've been fucking the worst for years, and it's unbeknownst to me.
Of course.
Now, I would appreciate the conversation that we could have had before it built up to a powder keg.
Of course.
But I'm going off like, and this person's like, he was a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And so, you know, I think that when things happen, when there's a fracture, depending on the level of it, like, it's all these thoughts that starts happening. I think this is where like emotional intelligence goes. And I think where people are able to have a village, a sound village, right? Just because you have people around you don't mean that these are the people you need to discuss anything with, right? If you're entertained by fucking clowns, I don't see talking to them about advice to, you know, advice regarding your wife, right? Like, and I'm not talking about people who are single or divorced. I'm not talking any of that. I'm saying just clowns.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, but if you don't have emotional intelligence and go through all these different things of why would this happen? Right. But I'm very much sensitive and equally sharp today, more than I have been ever in my life. And so when there's infractions, depending on who it's from and depending on what magnitude it is, if it's not resolved soon, it just is what it is. Right.
So with that being said, one, I want to know what your take on emotional intelligence is. But before we get there, right, you talk about like if the infraction is not repaired sooner than later, then, you know, it becomes a bigger problem, and then that's where the disconnect comes in, and that means, you know, within the relationship, right? And so how does that get handled? Like, is it the person who feels like they were done wrong? Is it their job to call and say, hey, you did me wrong? Or is it the person who, you know, misunderstood something's job to, like, who's responsible for initiating that correspondence?
I think it's not a one size fits all. I think every situation is different. You know,
that's
and
good enough.
I think that it, you know, I'll use the video director for one, right? Me calling him and not getting through, and then him sending me a barrage of texts and basically just, and I didn't read it with my angry tone because I wasn't angry.
Yeah.
But his texts were boom, 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 boom. I'm like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Right? I went through all the different emotions. Talk about triggers and different shit. But then still getting him a card going to buy a card, and I was only calling because he left his vape pen in the car, and I was just letting him know. I sent him the vape pen, and I wrote a handwritten message to him and just told him how appreciative I was, when he is willing,
And
to
ready.
talk to
Yeah.
me, then I'll be here, whatever, right? So I still reached out despite being on the other side of his barrage of text.
Yeah.
That's different because I genuinely didn't. It's not like we had a big blow up and now we both went in our
That came out of
corners,
nowhere.
right?
For you, it came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere, but
Yeah.
clearly it was some things that was like adding up and building up,
Yeah.
right? That maybe I didn't see signs. I don't know, right? But even that's a book that was a bookmark in my life of like, okay, right? And it's all about and shout out to Beat the Odds with Red Flags and Roses, their podcast, right? Red flags are not just in an intimate relationship.
Oh, absolutely not.
Red flags are at your job. Red flags are with your neighbors. Red flags are with the stores you patronize.
Yeah.
And so we tend to confuse the red flags with roses because we want said thing. And I think in that situation, I reached out, right? And so then fast forward years later, seeing him working at an event that I'm at, and I seen him, and I'm like, I seen him 3 times that day, and I'm like, I'm cool. But talk about closure. I went through my emotional part to get through that. So when I see him, it's not confrontational. If I had seen him earlier on, it would have been a problem. So I know for me in real time, like if I don't address these things within myself, if I feel slighted and it came out of nowhere, I am with being physical, which shows that there's still maturity I have to do on my end.
Well, I understand that.
Like,
I don't know that
I
you
know
would.
that
I don't know that you would actually be physical in this day and age. But the urge,
sure, I would.
The urge to be, I understand, is there.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna go up to somebody and spit on them. I'm not gonna go up to somebody. I'm not gonna go up to another man, even though this is the culture, not culture. This is the generation of it. I'm not gonna go up to another man and tell him to suck my dick, right? Because I know what that meant, right? If you say that, you're willing to take it wherever it's gonna go now. So I'm not really going up to another man and saying that. I'm also not going up to another man and spitting on him. I'm not gonna go up to somebody and sucker punch him and it comes out of nowhere. But in the conference, in the conversation of if I seen certain people during a certain time, it's certainly like it would not have been a conversation wrapped in love. So, and I don't want that because where it can go, it doesn't need to happen. We're not spring chickens. And so having a bad back or a banged up knee takes a little longer, and like it's all stupid.
So this is why I'm saying you're confusing me, but this is why I'm saying, like, I don't believe it. You may have the urge to be physical, you know what I'm saying, in the moment that you see somebody where you didn't do the work on your part. But I don't believe that you seeing a person who you feel as though wronged you, and by seeing them, had you not done the work, that you would have gone up and just clocked them in the head, right? Like,
I'm open to it. Let's leave it there.
Okay.
So I'm open to the possibility of it getting to that point where some people don't even see that as an option. Like I'm open to wherever this goes. I was open to it and I stood on that. But I knew that like that's not how I want to conduct myself in public or in private. Right? And I've never been an animal. I'm always a thinking person.
So again, as a thinking person, and I'm not saying that it could not happen, right? But what I'm saying is that as you just stated, as a thinking person, like, yes, depending on the day, your emotions may be able to get the best of you, right? But like, and I'm saying, maybe I'll just speak for myself. I'll just speak for myself, right? Like, there's been times when I've been so angry with someone and all I could do was think about being physical with them. I mean, to the point where it was haunting me in my dreams and I was afraid to actually bump into them. Right? But in my non-emotional side, I know, I would like to believe that I would have had more self-control to not do so unless it was necessary. And by being necessary, meaning unless I felt like I had to protect myself.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we're saying the same thing, and maybe I'm repackaging it different. I'm putting it in a different bottle. But I think
for me, like, closure is there's levels to it, right? I can still befriend someone who I feel as though crossed the line in a sense of, not necessarily showing me the same, the same regard that I showed them at that level. I think, for example, I'll give a prime example. For years, I was invited to celebrate birthdays with this person. And for years I showed up, right? And one time, there was a time where I wasn't included. And I didn't realize I wasn't included until I called, like, yo, what's up? What you doing? Like, no plans? And it's like, oh, yeah, no, there's plans. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Matter of fact, I'm already there. Oh, wow, okay. For me, like, that hurt. For me, that was, I didn't understand it. But, and I will say, like, I never brought this to the person's attention, right? Because after a while, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't important. Like, the hurt wasn't there anymore. Now I just have different expectations of this person.
that's okay too.
But
that's where we're different. Like, I'm gonna address that because I want to know, because I don't believe it was an intentional slight, but that's definitely unintentional. And it lands different if there's a call beforehand, like, hey, I'm doing this. Do you have an interest in going? And these people are going to be there. Just want to let you know. Like, I want to do this time. It lands different if you're given a heads up, if this has been being done consistently versus you reaching out, and you're reaching out because there's been no mention. And so maybe you're thinking, hey, I want to invite you over and we'll have a birthday dinner. But I can't even do that. And I went through all these thoughts of something to celebrate you, and you're off doing something else.
Well,
yeah. And this is the thing that happens.
Well, I didn't have those thoughts, right? Like,
regardless, let's say you did. But this is the thing for me. It makes it seem as if the things previous never happened, or the conversations never happened. The thing I just said to you about the person that wanted me to help them with the event. When you then do something on Tuesday, it's insulting my intelligence that Saturday and Sunday never happened.
So for certain.
It's just weird.
No.
And the person is making it weird. So I want to call you and say, I want to know. So now it's two different approaches. One is yours of, as time goes on or whatever, right? And then you just
Well, for
readjust.
me, it's
And I
not
think
even
that
a
that's
matter. It's I guess it's time, but it's more so it's me like, yo, it's me doing a self check. And so that again, it goes to like what does emotional intelligence mean to you and what does it look like, right? And so for me, like that for me, I practice my emotional intelligence in that moment, right? And so I could have been angry and I could have, you know what I'm saying, like, after everything called and said, yo, can we talk?
I told you to.
But also in that time frame, like it wouldn't have there was nothing that could have really been said that would make me be like, okay, you get a pass, right? So for me, I needed to say, hey, why did that bother me like that? Like, what was I actually feeling? Was I sad? Was I mad? Like, what was I actually feeling?
You can do yes
and then
no.
and then why was I feeling that way? And but then to top it off, you know what? Was it really a big deal? Like, do you really feel like you missed out on something? Like who like was it really a big deal? And do you really feel like you missed out on something? And if I can say no to both of those, it's not a big fucking deal.
I mean, and that's
right?
that's the difference of the resolve with both of us. And I think that the trick is finding what works for us with each other.
But also, and I will say again, like I said earlier in regards to this, like it wasn't a big deal. However, you have now been put in a box.
But
right?
I don't want to do that. I don't want to have different boxes
Does
in
it
my
mean
closet.
it doesn't mean that you can't come out that box, but now I just move with you accordingly.
I want to be fluid, and I don't mean in a funny way.
And that's here's the thing.
I don't have
but
time
I can
for
be
that.
fluid with you in that box because I know now. I know, like a
box is a box, babe. Like
a box is a box.
Think of a mouse trying to get out of a box,
here's
right?
what
and
I'll
they're
say.
constantly trying
here's
to get
what
out
I'll
the box.
say. As long as
you're keeping the lid on.
As long as I don't put the lid on, you're okay.
I don't know. I mean, and whatever. And I think the beauty of having this conversation,
because the bottom line is that it doesn't mean that if you're in the box you can't get out, right?
It takes work.
Well, absolutely. I have to be able to. I have to be able to trust you again in that degree, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not to say that there should never be a conversation about it.
But it's weird when it's 6 years later.
It could be
10 years. Like I think
be.
as friends or those in relationships.
But again, I think
it's your responsibility to communicate your hurt to said person.
I wasn't physically hurt, and
yes, but you're hurt.
I was confused.
It's your responsibility to communicate that because again, from these bookmarks in my life and then reflecting afterwards, right? And this happened certainly with you, and I'm sure in reverse.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that that bothered me.
Sometimes.
And so when it's not addressed and you're just like, la, 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 I'm like, yo, it's now been 7 days. You don't realize, la, 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 la. But if I told you on day 1 or day 2, and then you still was like, la, 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 then that's a different conversation. But if I never had the conversation with you to at least let you know, and when you're having these conversations, so even what you just said, like if you have the conversation, I didn't write it down, but what you just said about if you have the conversation and you don't get said thing, like, was it really, I don't know, I'm not going to repeat it right. But I think having a conversation for me at this point, and I've had a ton of them, I don't have the expectations of you admitting you were wrong or you even apologizing. When the dude with the thing with the club with you and like you handled it, I had a conversation with him because of our close proximity and the stuff that we were doing, but I just wanted him to know that I knew. I wasn't looking for him to admit it, apologize, say my B, I didn't know that was you. I didn't have none of that. And he didn't give me none of that. Now, if I had that in mind, then I would have been angry because now you're insulting me.
Right. And so,
And
you
so
know,
that's the
when
pre-work
you
that
walk
people
into
have to
something,
do.
yeah.
Like, what is the point of having this
When you
conversation? But
walk,
what I say to you is the value and the importance of you having these conversations with whomever is to prevent the future, because it will happen in a different way. So you put this person in a box over here and you don't allow them full tethered access to all your stuff. But now you leave them in your car while
oh,
you run to the bank real quick, and they take your car and they drive to Star Market and don't tell you or don't ask you first.
yeah.
And now that is another box that now you're putting, instead of just telling them, hey, I need you to handle me this way.
So here's what I'll
And that's
say.
it.
No, for certain. And I don't disagree with you, right? But so when I say I put them in the box, that just means, you know, it for me, it's more so I will move differently around you regarding this particular thing, right? Because it was a thing.
Yeah.
And so now if you're having something,
It's not a priority.
it's not a priority.
I mean, that's fair too. I just feel like there's other infractions that is inevitable to happen. Like if you
For
have an
certain,
infraction
and
with
I will
someone
say,
around money
and
and
here's
you don't address that thing,
mm,
it may not, and you put them in a box, or you put up some barriers and boundaries, perfect. But the infractions around the money will certainly happen when it comes to your personal property or it comes to your time. I think the infractions are going to happen because you never said thing. And it's I mean, from in my opinion, it certainly manifests in different ways, right? But I think the beauty is, again, having this conversation, you and I,
mm-hmm.
because people who are listening, you know, hopefully you have some method of addressing or, you know, doing some self-reflection when it comes to closure,
Yeah.
because it looks different for different people. And this is why, you know, my way, I think, is just cleaner and it's transparent. Now you could be on the other side of somebody that's full of shit, and you're sitting there talking, thinking you're having a hearty conversation, and then the person's full of shit. But now, for me, the next day, if you do the exact same thing, it's like, now you're playing with me. Now I have a decision to make. And I think the reason why I say, like, you know, and I'll end on this point, and you can give like a final thing before we close. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason why the physical piece, because I never was, I've certainly been in fights growing up, but as I'm older and reflecting, most of the fights that I've gotten in was defending somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
It was never really my fight.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's interesting because
They've always been my fight.
I bet they were, Leah.
But go ahead.
Jesus. So it's just
And not because I
interesting
started it. You know.
because it has manifested as an adult. And so because I've realized, like, this is a reality that has happened and it's been a reoccurring theme in my life, and there's certain things that's non-negotiables for me. And, you know, without getting fully into it with George Floyd, like we talked about on the show, like, I changed after that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, you know, I don't want to harm anybody, but I don't want anyone being harmed. So any infractions on people, I take a certain way. And I certainly take it a certain way when it's against me, who I show up to be the light to everybody. So for you to disrespect me, for you to, you know, but I'm also my father's son, where if there is something that needs to happen, I'm not involved in a whole fucking, there's people you can call. I think everyone has that person they can call that's, you know, a few light bulbs short. right? But I'm not calling anybody, right? So, I won't get into it. But I think that's probably where I feel like I'm open to the things that could happen, because how dare you do that? But I know that, again, intention versus impact, and a lot of times people just don't see how they present and how they put off. People like 50, I think, is very clear in it.
I'm not
right, but some people just don't know that when the famous when you're talking to somebody, let me call you back. That's usually a way for people to get off the phone. Let me call you back. But if you say that to somebody who has maybe some detachment issues, or maybe they were really looking forward to talking to you about something, and you say, let me call you back, they're expecting you to call them back. But for you just was saying, yo, let me get off the phone. And you have a problem with saying, all right, yo, let me talk to you another time. Yo, have a good night.
Well, that's
but
what
saying,
I call
let me
you
call
back.
you right back, that's not a good
call
vibe.
you back and versus right back are two different things.
I think people intertwine it. I've heard it both ways. And it's not, it's a way to get off the phone.
So for me, I'm gonna call you back, or I'll talk to you later, are the same thing. If I'm saying I'm gonna call you right back, I mean, that don't mean like in 2 minutes, right? Because I'm getting off the phone for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
But right back, I would think before the day is out.
I'm getting off the phone for a reason. And if I don't resolve this shit that I got off the phone for, I ain't fucking calling you back.
Maybe you get off the phone to play video games.
My nigga suck a nut.
That's not my ministry, man. I'm not into
the hell.
It. I'm just
out of me. How about that?
Jesus Christ. Close the show, man.
Woo.
Yeah, close it, please. This is ridiculous. I try to be the bigger person.
Do you?
I do, man.
When?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Like You've
grown?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In all the ways?
Close the fucking show now.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us again, and tune in next week, because we will sure to be here. What we'll talk about, who knows? Who we'll talk about, who knows? How we'll talk about it, who knows? But I guarantee you will enjoy it. Yeah. Anything further?
No. Well, we do have we have some stuff. We'll get into it next week, so I don't want to. Yeah, you've already went overtime.
Oh, okay.
It's hard keeping you like in the confines.
Yeah, I don't like to be put in a box or corner or none of the things.
So as a married woman that has children.
Yeah.
Very ironic. Anyway. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. WEDlocked and Loaded. You know what it is. Yeah.
WEDlocked and loaded.
WEDlocked and loaded.
WEDlocked and loaded.